I now call the Board of Education regular meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for Monday, June 10th, 2024, the Board of Education regular meeting as set forth, and each item is considered ready for discussion and/or action?
I move to approve the agenda for Monday, June 10th, 2024, the Board of Education regular meeting as set forth, and each item is considered ready for discussion and/or action.
Is there a second?
Second.
This is a roll call vote.
Director Roundtree.
Aye.
Director Borkstein.
Aye.
Director Kaminsky.
Aye.
Director Humbles.
Aye.
Director Byers.
Aye.
Director Newman.
Aye.
President Garlock.
Aye. We have one public hearing tonight for the District Developed Service Delivery Plan for Special Education. Board Secretary Reedstrom, have we received any written correspondence regarding the District Developed Service Delivery Plan for Special Education?
We have not.
Have there been requests to address the board this evening regarding the published hearing?
No.
Thank you. The District Developed Service Delivery Plan for Special Education public hearing is officially closed. Board Secretary Reedstrom, have there been requests to address the board this evening?
No.
Thank you. I'll now give the meeting to Dr. Grover to share her report.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, President Garlock. Just want to again say congratulations to all of our high school graduates. We graduated 1,001 students out into the world. So thank you to all of our staff members and leaders for all the contributions to the journeys that the kids have had the opportunity to engage in here in Cedar Rapids, and we wish them well into the future. Next, just a couple of quick announcements as it relates to administrator hires. We are excited to welcome Orcha Serpent as our Chief Data Officer and Dr. Maura Hobson as our Chief of Schools for Area 1. Also, we have Jay Richardson will be joining us as the head principal of Franklin Middle School, and Jason Martinez as the head principal for Roosevelt Creative Quarter Business Academy. I do want to give a special thank you to Molina Healthcare. They presented $5,000 to Hoover Community School. What a wonderful event. It is to support their food pantry and to address food insecurities. The food pantry over at Hoover, it supports 178 families by distributing 750 meals every 2 weeks. What a contribution. Speaking of meals, we also want to make sure that our families are aware that we will be hosting our free summer meals program June 10th through August the 16th. We will have breakfast from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock a.m. and lunch from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. You can find out more at the website. It's listed there on the screen. And thank you to our Nutrition Services Department for making sure that our students have meals over the summer. Just a reminder, and this is so important for our families, to make sure that you complete the annual verification process. This is critical to us as we prepare a seat for your child. We want to make sure that we're fully staffed and that we know your students will be joining us. So please complete the annual verification process. It also allows us to stay in contact with our families with updated information. I did just want to give an administrative report to the Board of Education that we have moved along with the recommendations for the Board of Education to revise the plans for the Harrison-Madison project. Our operations department, they have been working with the architect, starting some initial conversations, and we look forward to bringing an update to the board soon. Speaking of Harrison, we do plan to join the Save CR Heritage Group for a historical neighborhood walking tour. So we invite you to join us. Cedar Rapids historian Mark Stouffer Hunter. He will be doing a walking tour of the Harrison Elementary School neighborhood in the Northwest Cedar Rapids. And the tours will be from 6 to 7 o'clock p.m. on Friday, June the 14th, and from 10 to 11:30 a.m. on Saturday, June the 15th. Doors at Harrison will open 30 minutes before each tour. No cost to attend, so join us. Okay, I think My next update here is my last update for tonight. At the last school board meeting, President Garlock provided a statement on behalf of the board, updating the public that there were no plans to change policy regarding House File 2586 as it relates to arming teachers. And also, in accordance to House File 2586, all districts over 8,000 students are required to have school resource officers within their 9 through 12 buildings unless the board takes action against it. We currently have 5 SROs placed at our 4 high schools and at Polk. These officers, they play a very crucial role in the overall comprehensive, safe, and secure learning framework. It is just one part of our framework. We've also been working along with our Safe and Secure Learning Task Force this year. They have been charged with identifying other proactive strategies such as mental health services and restorative practices to help support our students. Next month, we will hear a report from that team, and we will have additional recommendations for the board. Furthermore, we have purchased and adopted Crisis Go as part of our safety plan. We are almost at the end of the final steps of implementation for that process. I do also want to note that Janessa Carr, who's our Safe and Secure Learning Coordinator, she's also led reunification efforts and creating crisis kits for all of our buildings and providing trainings. As you can see, it's a very comprehensive approach to our safety. And I do want to just really give a thanks to the Cedar Rapids Police Department for our partnership that extends beyond our SROs. This year we have received, I think across the country, we've seen a number of threats that have occurred out with schools, as well as a number of swatting calls, and they have been very proactive in supporting us, a lot of resources to help ensure that we keep our schools safe. Thank you, and that concludes my report for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Grover. Vice President Tominski, do you have a board report?
I do, thank you. So just reporting quickly on our Policy and Compliance Oversight Committee led by Liz Jacoby. So in this meeting that we just had last week, we discussed changes to policies on threats of violence and acts of violence, which are being reviewed in response to concerns raised by members of the public. We are discussing changes that, and just to be clear, they must comply with various regulatory bodies having jurisdiction over the district. So continuing those conversations. We also addressed permitting process to allow students to attend schools other than their school of residence. District staff are examining needs expressed by families and the impact of upcoming transition to career and technology education, or CTE. Also talked about we considered supervision of students being transported to school activities using vehicles that are not district owned. Talked about district procedure 705.1, so as to require documentation supporting a request to reimburse meal expenses. There was a few spots where we were talking about the board manual provisions. So specifically, we talked about board meetings and just that they are board meetings that are open to the public, and the board president's role in respecting public comment and just addressing that. We also talked about simplifying the policy on eligibility of co-curricular activities and confirm the statement of workplace expectations, and that it's consistent with law and district practices. And then maybe that last piece is, in addition to regular reviews of particular provisions as specified by Iowa Code, the committee is developing a review of the board manual as a whole. So no shortage of work in this committee. So I appreciate your leadership, Liz. And again, Director Borchning and I serve on this committee. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Tominski. Do we have any other board reports tonight? Okay, thank you. So let's move on to our consent agenda. Are there any items the director would like to pull for comment, question, or separate vote? Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
This is a roll call vote.
Director Borcherding,
Aye.
Director Tominski,
Aye.
Director Humbles,
Aye.
Director Byers,
Aye.
Director Newman,
Aye.
Director Roundtree,
Aye.
President Garlock.
Aye. We have several presentations tonight. The first one is our Department of Justice Annual Report, and we will turn the floor over to Dr. Schmitz. Thank you.
Sure.
Good evening. I have given you a hard copy of this. I'm going to be sharing some data in the report, and so that way you'll have an opportunity to look at it at a later date. This report is actually in the agreement. It's one of the requirements of the agreement, that this report would be given at your last board meeting of the school year, to explain the district's policies related to seclusion and physical restraint, summary of the district data, which we'll spend a little bit of time on, and again, to be presented at the last meeting of the year. So, as you know, the agreement started last year, and last year it was really a lot about getting the district in a position to be able to implement the agreement. So a lot of the work was done at the district level. I'm not familiar enough with y'all to know whether how many of you were on the board last year, but if you were, you know that we passed a lot of policies, passed a lot of procedures, and so there was a lot of back and forth going on at the district level. Filled my position as the executive director, filled the director's position, and then really set the district up to be able to collect lots of data. And so it was about a lot of data last year, developing routines and daily practices or procedures at the district level. This year, it's not to say that things didn't happen at the building level, but this year we were much more involved at the building level, working on data quality, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that as we go forward, and then establishing the procedures and the policies that you all adopted last year as living policies and procedures in individual buildings. So as I was here this year, one of the things that surprised me is that it continues to be, although I think we've come a long way, some common misunderstandings about the agreement. One misunderstanding is some people think that it's only about students with IEPs, students receiving special education services. That is not true. It includes any child within the district that would have behavior needs or concerns. The other thing is that it's not just about seclusion and physical restraint. It's really about the whole broad continuum of behavior supports. They place a lot of emphasis on our Tier 1 positive behavior intervention systems, which is where we have teachers doing de-escalations, not only teachers but paraprofessionals, office staff, doing de-escalation techniques so that things don't get escalated to the point where we need to do something more drastic. So it really is about everything from those very minor de-escalation all the way to instances where a child may need to be physically restrained. So this is one of the data that I would like to share with you. And what this shows is the number of restraints that we had by month. And so you'll see the first column is the number of physical restraints, but the actual number in that month. The second is the average number per day, because you'll see that we had 7 in August, where we had very few school days in August. December has a significant break, March has spring break, and so we disaggregated it according to the average number per day, and you'll see that some months are higher for reasons that we don't necessarily know. May makes sense because we're getting really antsy at that point about school ending. And so, but May, February, December, and August and November were our high months for physical restraints. The next gives you the percentage of those restraints that were either receiving special education services, those who are African American, or multi-race. Now, the reason why we don't have multi-race from August to November is because we didn't start collecting that until December, but we can certainly get that for you if you would like to see those particular months, those 4 months at the beginning of the year. June Yes, we had physical restraints the last day of school, and so we're still calculating that data. But certainly can provide it for you should you want that. So the average number of restraints per day, per month have ranged from 0.73 to 1.75. Students that are African American or identified as students with IEPs are overrepresented. So when you saw those percentages for those two populations of students, the percentage is higher than our demographics as far as the percentage of students that we have who are African American or students with IEPs. And again, the high months were August, September, November, February, and May. So restraints by grade. You can see here that we have some grades that are escalated in comparison to others. Kindergarten actually is not surprising. That's a huge transition time and something that we probably need to take a look at as a system as far as how do we support our students that are coming from pre-K and probably especially those who are not coming from pre-K into the K-12 system. And then again, second grade, fifth grade, 10th grade are those grades that we would see the higher number of restraints needed. Could you just go back for a second? So you'll see that 62% are from pre-K to grade 5. Not surprising, because those students are the students that we really have control of their environment more throughout the school day. Whereas when you get into middle school, high school, secondary programming, there sometimes are more opportunities for students to have their needs met, and there just are more variables going on at that level. So buildings, one of the things that we must report are the number of restraints by building. You will see that we only include buildings that had more than 10 restraints throughout the year, and the reason for that is once you get less than 10, it could be easy for someone to identify who those students were. And so this is done out of confidentiality for students, but you'll see that Washington, Jefferson, CRA, you can go all the way down the list. I think last year when this was reported, Washington was the one that had, was the only one who was on the list who had over 10. This year we have more even distribution among some of the buildings. We did not do a comparison from last year to this year. It's just not fair because last year things were very confusing. We didn't have a lot of systems in place yet. And so it wouldn't be a fair comparison to go from last year to this year. The next group of buildings are those that had 10 or less physical restraints. And so you will see that we have our other high schools, middle schools, and a good number of elementary schools. We did have some buildings that did not have any restraints, and that includes Metro, City View High School, Truman Early Learning Center, and Madison Elementary School. So suspension data. This is data that the DOJ wants us to collect as well. There's other data that is that they're asking for us as well, but this is a common one. This I want to spend just a moment to tell you what this says. We did compare the number of suspensions from last year to this year, and you can see that they went up significantly. Not sure why this is, other than perhaps we had more of an understanding about physical restraints. We had more of an understanding about what needs to occur. But when asked some principals about these data as far as why did they increase so much from last year to this year, the most common explanation was that they didn't feel as though they had other choices or other tools. Now, having said that, The good news is that there's quite a good effort within the district to improve our interventions from the PBIS, from the multi-tiered systems of supports. And so there was a lot of ramping that back up this year. And those buildings that did that, we did see a significant increase in positively as far as suspensions going down, restraints going down. And so as the district continues to revamp PBIS, MTSS efforts, I'm convinced that the suspensions will go down as well. But you can see the, using the African American data as an example, elementary, last year there were 91, this year there were 818. 35% of those were African American compared to 23% that we have enrolled. And so that's comparing the percentage of the actual suspensions compared to the demographics that we have. And then again, for students with IEPs. So this is one of the reasons why I gave you the handout, so that you would be able to refer back to this should you want to. So summary, elementary suspension has increased more than 9 times, middle 5 times, high school almost 4 times. 18% more black students are suspended compared to African American students that are enrolled. 9% more students with IEPs are suspended than are enrolled. So again, it's discrepant, they're overrepresented. Not unusual, but still something that we most definitely need to address. So moving forward, one of the things with all of these data that I just showed you is data quality is always an issue. A suspension in one building may not exactly be the same thing as what it might be in another, as far as what are the guidelines around that, what are the procedures around that. With the physical restraints, we know that due to what happens after there's a restraint, there's an incredible amount of paperwork that must happen. There's an incredible amount of due process that must happen. And so it's a very cumbersome event. And so whether we are reporting 100% of our restraints, we don't know. So we need to continue to look at data quality. Looking at management versus intervention. Management would be that very low level as far as doing the de-escalation, doing the interventions for students, whereas intervention would be when you intervene to do a physical restraint. So making sure that that full continuum is actually addressed. And then sustainability. I would hate for the district to have gone through all of this with the procedures, with the policies, with the changing teachers' behaviors and student behaviors just for the agreement and then not have that sustain itself in the future. Questions for me?
Thank you for your report. That was very thorough. I do have a question. If we could go back to the restraints by grade, you alluded to the fact that our kindergartners have a fairly high number of restraints. You also referenced our pre-K or the pre-K experiences. Is there a way to disaggregate that data so that we can see how many of those kids that are being restrained have gone through our preschool program as opposed to
I believe
not?
that we can do that. And the reason why I say that is because I did some work in Cedar Rapids several years ago under a different context. And we found out at that time that kids who had gone through the Cedar Rapids preschool did significantly better, kindergarten through 3rd grade, in the area of reading. And so I think that if we could disaggregate it at that time, we should be able to do it now. Can certainly look into that for you.
Okay, I appreciate that. This board is very interested in maintaining or expanding our preschool.
Yeah.
So any data that we can have that would support that would be appreciated.
We'll do that.
Thank you very
I think
much.
because obviously kids who go through any sort of preschool, particularly the districts, are at an advantage to those that come to school for the first time in any environment as a kindergartner.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to us, but having that data
Perfect.
gives us some
We'll get that
evidence.
for you.
Other questions?
I have a question.
Director Borcherding.
I have a question about, so first of all, thank you so much for recognizing and identifying that there may be some different processes in different buildings that result in suspensions. So looking forward to having some clean data so that we are comparing apples to apples as we move forward. My question right now is also, I appreciate that you provided data divided out by building. I'm wondering if there is a process to provide supplemental staffing in buildings with higher occurrences of PR.
Typically, each building has what is referred to as a safety team. And that team is comprised of the administrator, typically, or one of the administrators, engagement specialist. In some cases, there may be a paraprofessional. In some cases, there may be teachers. But the building really decides who they have available and who they would like to serve on the team. Some buildings have very large teams, some buildings have very small teams. I don't believe that we have, for lack of a better word, regulated that to the point that maybe we should look at that as far as what's a typical number, who must be on the team, who should be on the team. They are all trained in safety care, which the district moved to last year. So they are the only ones who can do physical restraint. But as far as the numbers and the types of positions within buildings, I don't believe that has come under the conversation of the DOJ.
Okay. I think a shared practice across determining what constitutes a building safety team would be helpful to share best practice moving forward.
And we actually, this year, looked at the job description of the engagement specialist and made it much more clear about their role on the safety team and what that all involves. So I think we've taken a good step towards that, but I would agree that there's certainly more work to be done.
Thank you.
Director Humbles.
When I was looking at the physical restraints by month, and you have special ed and African Americans, what about our other students that are attending? Do you have data on the restraints for them?
You mean by other demographics?
Yeah, because you only have African Americans
Yep,
highlighted.
yep.
And we have other students that attend our schools.
right.
And then what multi means too.
Multi is typically 2 or more races.
Okay.
And the reason why we have selected those 2 demographics as far as African American and students with IEPs is they are the 2 that are discrepant.
Okay.
We could certainly get the others, but needing to be a little bit careful about confidentiality. Because you get to too small of a number and people tend to recognize who that might be. But those are the 2 populations, and I can tell you this is true across the country. This is not a Cedar Rapids thing, but those are the 2 populations when you talk about behavior that do tend to be discrepant.
Director Newman.
Thank you. How do our restraint and suspension levels compare to other districts our size, either in the Midwest or nationwide?
Yeah, you know, you really can't compare us to any other district, at least in the state, in the area of restraints, because our definition of restraint due to the DOJ agreement is different. We have a very low bar for what would constitute a restraint that other districts would say, are you kidding me? Because it's just become very difficult to place hands on a student in some way that is moving them from one place to another against their will, that would always be a restraint here that may or may not be in other districts.
So may I clarify? Not a
Please.
low bar. We have a higher standard of care
Right.
that's greater than the law in the state of Iowa. So our definition based on the Department of Justice has a higher standard of care than what the law is in the state of Iowa.
Do we categorize them then, like this is a level 1, level 2, level 3, so that we could get an idea where things are in proportion to other districts?
That would be something that would be very interesting to look into. We'd have to make sure that we ask the questions very specifically as far as what data we're wanting to capture. The only thing that I can tell you, and thank you, Ryan, is that we are held at a much different standard than other districts in the state and across the country, actually, except for a few other districts that may also be in an agreement.
Is the same true of suspension then?
Suspensions, I don't know, to be perfectly honest. I'm not sure about suspensions. I think suspension data in districts that I've worked with in the past, there's a lot of discretion on the part of the principal, unless it is very clearly defined as far as this behavior creates this suspension, this behavior creates this suspension. I have been in districts in Iowa, large districts, where if a principal wants to suspend a student, they would have a person at the central office that they would have to call, and that person would determine the number of days. And it was meant to keep it consistent from one building to another. But I do know that's it's something difficult to be consistent from one building to another because every situation is so different. Even when we're asked, was that a restraint? I will never say yes or no just based on the question. It's always what happened. What happened next, and then what happened, and then what happened, because there are a lot of variables in these situations.
And mine's an extension of that as well, just with the suspension, I guess we're talking about kind of national comparisons. So are they also seeing this, more than 5 times since 2022-23? Are we seeing that data replicated across the country in terms of that level of jump?
Other districts?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know that. I
Okay.
wouldn't know that. We
Okay.
could certainly poll some, urban districts within the state and ask that. The only thing I would caution you about is I think that other districts probably struggle with the same thing we do as far as consistency from one building to another, from one administrator to another, unless they have the situation I was describing to you where one person within the district makes that choice.
Yeah, I just think these numbers, elementary suspension, that is super concerning because we know the data around, how that sets
Yeah,
them up for
exactly.
success, on down the road. So I guess I'm just interested in kind of the specifics around, how we are improving those systems and instructional techniques that we're using, and maybe we're modifying in certain ways or changing the environment so that we can really figure out a solution
Right.
to getting those numbers down.
Right. And I know that these data are scary and that they're disturbing, but it will get better. It will get better as we become more familiar with the agreement and more familiar with what we can and cannot do. I'm confident that it will get better as time goes on. Right now, we're still, I was telling Dr. Grover a week or so ago, we've kind of got out of the shock and horror of it all, and we're more into, okay, what do we got to do? And so, this is a very big deal. A lot of it, and it takes a while in a district this size to get from Dr. Grover's office to a kindergarten teacher. And so, as we become more comfortable with it, we being everyone, I believe it'll get better.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I appreciate it. Our second presentation is our fiscal year 2024 Audit Committee report. So we will welcome the Audit Committee to the podium.
Okay, so tonight from the Audit Committee, we have Janet Henry and Jason Fisher.
Thank you for your patience. Technical difficulties. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Justin.
So we'll go ahead and get started. So what you see here is kind of typical activities of the audit committee. So as you kind of hear throughout the presentation, the audit committee has kind of been changing over time a little bit. But typically what we see is reviewing internal financial controls with the auditor, assessing the adequacy of those controls, doing a semi-annual review with the Cedar Rapids School District Attorney to discuss any legal issues going on, reviewing property casualty work comp insurance coverages with the commercial insurance representative, review high-level risk mitigation associated with technology through reports from district technology staff and vendors, reviewing district policies, procedures to assess and manage the risk level, budget overview of staff, and then completing the committee self-evaluation performance and effectiveness survey annually.
All right, so some of the highlights for this year, we did the AEA legislation implications. So Carla's been filling us in. As we've obviously known, the change in the dynamics of with the Department of Education. We've defined relationships between parent groups and districts. So we spent a lot of time this year talking about the risks around all of our parent associations and the need for some additional support. We have clarified that at this point in time, the district does not have risk because each one of those organizations has a separate bank account. However, there's been a lot of conversation around concerns with members of those parent association and the education that's lacking within some of the board members. We had more intentional meetings with the technology department, so we've been last month we met with them as well. We talked about multiple times. We talked about an auditor, and so we feel confident with the chief compliance officer stepping in and assisting with the internal controls this year. The enrollment updates. We've also looked at we worked with Dr. Grover on the Finance and Facilities Core Committee that will have 2 board members, an audit committee member, and 1 master facility oversight committee member, along with several other community members, getting more involved in the district. That the charter update was based on board feedback, so that will be we did that last year. There'll be a continuation as this new the Finance and Facilities board committee rolls out, as far as how we adapt as an audit committee. And then the district financial overview, including budget and legislative updates. Again, our membership, so I'm the committee chair this year, and Jason is one of our board members. And so looking forward, as I mentioned earlier, we will be looking to update our audit committee charter as the committee changes. We'll be meeting 4 times next year. We'll have a kickoff meeting again with the superintendent. We feel like we get a lot of information as far as understanding where we're going as a committee. As the district continues, we want to make sure we're fulfilling the district needs. We'll also be evaluating an audit vendor and evaluating the future audit committee and what our role, how we continue to support the district. All right, what questions?
Thank you. Thank you. Board members, any questions?
Thank you for your work on this.
Okay, you did an excellent job. No questions. Thank you very much. Our next presentation is about the district developed service delivery plan for special ed. Ms. Cruz, the floor is all yours.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Cruz, Executive Director of Special Education for the Cedar Rapids School District. And tonight, I am pleased to share with you our new District Developed Service Delivery Plan. otherwise known in our world as DDSDP. So I hope it's okay that that's what I use to refer the rest of this kind. This plan was developed to meet the state requirement of developing a new plan every 5 years, as well as the intention of actively engaging it in our work moving forward. We value the importance of honoring these requirements while ensuring they best meet the needs of our students and staff. The DDSDP was last developed and presented to the board for approval in August 2019. It has since been available as a linked resource on the special education page on the district website. The content requirements of the district developed plans have to meet a set of 5 questions and a series of assurances. Also, as part of this plan, the district must describe how early childhood special education instructional services are provided to meet the needs of eligible children. The questions, you want to go back, please? I got excited, Justin, thank you. The questions we needed to address were as follows. What process was used to develop the special education delivery system for eligible individuals? How will services be organized and provided to eligible individuals? How will caseloads of special education teachers be determined and regularly monitored? What procedures will a special education teacher use to resolve caseload concerns? And how will the delivery system for eligible individuals meet the targets identified in the state's performance plan? Additionally, as part of that question, how will the delivery system for eligible individuals address needs identified by the state in any determination made under Chapter 41? And what process will be used to evaluate the effectiveness of the delivery system for eligible individuals? Additionally, the district had to also provide the following assurances. The district assures that prior to the school board adoption, this delivery system was available for comment by the general public. The district assures the delivery system plan was developed by a committee that included parents of eligible individuals, special education teachers, general education teachers, administrators, and at least one AEA representative. And the district assures the AEA Special Education Director verified the delivery system is in compliance with the Iowa Administrative Rules of Special Education. Finally, the district assures the school board has approved the service delivery plan for implementation. Okay. The Department of Education requires an updated plan to be completed at least once every 5 years. The Iowa Code requires a current plan be available in the event of a state audit. In addition, the DDSDP must obtain public input and be approved by the school board. All input provided is considered and may potentially require a shift in the plan, whether it is early learning, caseloads, or the continuum of services. When these steps have been completed, the finalized plan is then submitted to the AEA for approval and subsequently uploaded in CASA. Over the course of the next 5 years, the plan will serve as a guide and point of reference for administrators and special education staff in our district. Additionally, district-level special education directors will work with building admin to review roster numbers at least 3 different points throughout the school year, beginning fall of 2024. Required participants of this work are LEA administrators, special education teachers, general education teachers, AEA administrators, and parents. In addition, our team also included building level administrators, special education coaches, high school special education department heads, our chief of HR, and our career technical education content lead. In total, we had 25 participants in this work, and their collective voices were instrumental in the development of this plan and how it will be utilized going forward. The established team for this work met over the course of 3 evenings throughout the 23-24 school year. This group actively engaged in discussion around the ideal state for special education in our district, analyzed current data, and reviewed plans from other urban districts and identified strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of each. That information was ultimately compiled to create the next 2024 DDSDP for CRCSD and prepare it for public comment before obtaining board approval. Before we close for the evening, we wanted to make you aware and extend an invitation to you all for our first inaugural Educational Leadership Summit on June 17th and 18th. Our department has designed this learning opportunity for all building administrators to learn in a summit format. This means that we will be hosting a keynote speaker, and then participants will have the opportunity to select breakout sessions of their choosing to learn more about different aspects of special education MTSS, secondary transition, legal learning, family support, and building learner independence. We are hopeful that this learning gives them a broader perspective and increased confidence in their leadership of all learners. We would love to have you join us as your schedule allows. Are there any questions I can answer this evening?
Thank you. That's those letters are a mouthful.
A lot of alphabet in
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I appreciate all the work that you and your team of 25 did to put together this plan. That's a lot of input, so thank you very much for that. Anyone on the board have questions?
I just had a thought. Well, thank you to everybody here presenting this evening. 25 people is already a lot, so I don't want to add to it, but just a thought I had is that I wondered if there were any other community experts or individuals that are in this space that we could somehow in the future tie together resources within the community that our students could access and just have those partners be maybe a part of sort of this framework conversation so we can continue to learn from one another.
I think it's an excellent point. And I did neglect to mention that we did have our early learning administrator from Truman join this conversation,
nice.
but also community partners would be an excellent asset to the conversations as well. So thank
But
you.
it sounds like you have a pretty thorough
This one
group
was
here,
pretty
so
robust.
yeah, it's pretty robust.
Other questions?
If I may. Anything that you'd want to maybe highlight, big differences between 2019 and 2024 that really stand out to you?
I would, and thank you for that question. In a previous role, I had the great privilege when I was with the AEA of receiving all of the DDSDPs that came in from the 32 districts that we oversaw. And so I'm in a rare position where I've been able to see just how they're utilized across the region. The 2019 plan was wonderful. And one of the things about those state requirements is it requires you to have that current plan, but it doesn't dictate necessarily how you put it to work. And so that was one of the things that I felt very critical as we began this process, that if we are required to do this, then we're going to put it to work and we're going to be accountable to it. So even though it lived on our website, there wasn't necessarily those touch points and bringing staff members back to that. In fact, a lot of the folks on our team learned for the first time that this existed. And so we're very much looking forward to putting it to work and including all of our staff in the process as we move forward, because this is, like our IEPs, is a working document that as we move along and continue to learn new things, that we'll be able to adapt as we need to.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Our last presentation tonight is on instructional empowerment, and joining us will be folks from the Office of Academics, Johnson STEAM Academy, and Instructional Empowerment.
Good evening. We have the opportunity this evening to speak with you about our movement next year with our potential movement with instructional empowerment. We have a presentation tonight that will take a look at where we have been with instructional empowerment, what we have done so far this year, what we have accomplished, and what we're planning for next year. We have also asked Jenny K. Hampton and her team from Johnson STEAM Academy to join me this evening because they have invited members of the board, our Office of Academics. We have helped support the team there and really have shown some significant improvements with the help of instructional empowerments even so far this year. In front of you, you should have a copy of the presentation as well as a board plan, or budget plan, that I will speak to as we move through. Michelle Fitzgerald with Instructional Empowerment joins us from Florida. Hopefully she's there. Yeah, good. To answer any questions the board may have about moving forward with the plan. So this spring, you approved a plan to begin the work with our building principals, our district leadership team, to include our chief of schools, myself, the Office of Academics, our entire coaching, building teams, our district level coaches, and the Y workshop for 3/4 of our teachers. We have done a heavy amount of lifting so far this year to get ready for the work that we are going to do next year. We have completed rigor walks. We have calibrated rigor walks with our building leadership teams. We have created action boards in many of our buildings. We have begun that work with planning and implementing. We have trained coaches, building level coaches with Look and Learns. We have demonstrated knowledge and mastery of the coaching tool so far this year. We have learned about learning targets and our standards. We have created success criteria in many of our buildings and across the district. I want to show you a couple things with pictures. Okay, so we want to make sure that you understand that with the commitment to instructional empowerment this year, we have developed a leverage point with our leadership and our coaches to ensure that we have good implementation and positive implementation for next year. These are pictures of teams in schools working with their action boards. Johnson is there, McKinley. Next slide. We had many teachers that we had to disperse across the district. This is at Kirkwood. They were good partners for us to provide space for the learning with teachers. We had tools. We asked for feedback from teachers and from administrators in terms of how to best implement and then the effectiveness of the learning as we proceeded through this spring. I love this one because it is at, I think this one is at the Doubletree. And we had all of our teachers doing the Y workshop at the Doubletree. And we just didn't have space enough for everybody, but everybody wanted to be involved, and that was a wonderful day. Michelle Fitzgerald was here from Florida to do some of the presenting for our buildings. So far, we have demonstrated leaders to have a laser-like focus on what this is going to look like. We're very clear on what we are expecting and what the support will be for next year. Coaches have been trained up and developed alignment within their PLCs and within buildings. And students or teachers are going to be learning next year student agency. So tonight I've asked Johnson, and just to be completely transparent, this is an opportunity for those board members who were able to join us that day. We have Director Borcherding was visiting that day and observed much of the work. President Garlock, Director Byers, our Chief of Schools were there observing and supporting the work. Mark Timmerman, Linda Rasak, and the entire Office of Academics was there to observe the work at Johnson STEAM Academy. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Jenny K. Hampton, Principal at Johnson.
Good evening. Just to make sure that I stay on point and don't veer off, I'm going to read from my phone so I can get a little windy. All right. I'm supposed to do this slide. Here you can just see some wonderful pictures of our students engaged in the work. We definitely will go more into this, but this is some exciting things that are happening in our building. Okay. So what you see right here is our timeline of events that happened. So on September 1st, which was a Friday, I had a 4:30 meeting with Corrine and another administrator to ask if our building would be willing to open up for IE to come through and do a walkthrough. And I said, sure. After the initial IE walkthrough, I immediately signed our building up to be a pilot school, wanting to put JSA in a position to do something amazing. I began setting up our building with the impending change by creating excitement in our PL meetings and sharing all the pieces I learned throughout the months. As you're all aware, I am the 5th administrator in 4 years at JSA, and we have had a rough year and with incidents that we had no control of. So it was my desire to be a part of this movement to elevate the amazing teaching that goes on daily at JSA and to be more than what people have seen on the news. In February, we had our school comprehensive needs assessment, which nothing we found in our results was surprising. We know we had work to do. March 18th, and every Monday for the remainder of the year, a group of 9 classroom teachers became the Willing Coalition. We began with a book study, and this quickly became a time where the teachers were sharing what they were trying in class. Organically, the building coach and coordinator, who will speak momentarily, were able to coach the group and create the open dialogue on how they could embed student teaming into their lessons. The excitement and commitment of these teachers was just a thing that we needed. On May 6th, I asked the Willing Coalition who would be interested in opening up your classroom to the district leaders. I was sure to explain to them that this is an opportunity, and if they chose not to, we would do it next year. But I said, please think about it and get back to me in a week. The following week, I asked, and 6 members of the Willing Coalition agreed to opening up their classroom, and on May 23rd, the magic happened. This experience has provided our building a way to look at the instruction differently, as well as provide our students with the ability to use their voices as well as their skills. IE has also provided me with knowing exactly what our main thing, if board approved, is moving forward and keeping the main thing the main thing. One of our building goals is to get off the comprehensive list status, and I believe that this work and the support of the district and our state supports, we can move the needle in our achievement, and our students will be reaping the benefits. Thank you.
My name is Sarah Jones. I'm the magnet coordinator at JSA, and part of the role of the magnet coordinator is also instructional coaching.
And I'm Kim Fuquay, the instructional coach at JSA.
And we wanted the opportunity to share a little bit of our journey as coaches and how we have been supporting this work at JSA. So as Kim and I have been on our own learning journey, as we've read the book, as we've had the learning that's been provided for coaches, we wanted to find ways to bring that learning back to the teachers. We knew that learning would be coming for them, but we didn't want to wait. We were too excited. And so we started with the tools that have been shared with us. We started to bring into our professional learning that we were designing for learning experiences for our teachers. And what we found is that their engagement as learners went up as we started to engage in those tools and those strategies. So we were putting our teachers into intentional teams. They were choosing their roles in those teams. They were using agree-disagree cards, summarizing mats, and it was really cool to see as their engagement went up and the decrease of distractions, and that was exciting for us. So then we were looking for opportunities to help support them as they brought that into their classrooms. As Jenny Kay led the learning of the Willing Coalition on those Monday meetings, she also applied some gentle pressure to start implementing strategies in the classroom. So Kim and I, again, were looking for ways that we could support them. And some teachers jumped right in. There was one teacher who right away utilized the summarizing mat and had students learning how to write in their section of the map. And she invited us in to come watch the students at work and to take pictures and to celebrate that first step. And there were other teachers that needed some more support in their journey and deciding what was next for them. So something I did is in our coaching conversations, I brought the tools. I brought the Toolkit 101 that I had received, walked them through the tools and let them ask questions about them and express concerns they were having, as well as starting to think about how they might implement those in the classroom.
And as Sarah mentioned, we supported them during our coaching conversations, but we also were supports for those teachers in the classroom as well as they began implementing it with their students. So where we really started was having students have conversations with each other. That's something that has really taken a back seat lately, and we wanted to bring that back to the forefront. And so it really began with, how do students have conversations, bringing in sentence starters for students to be able to utilize to support that. Starting with a really non-threatening scenario where they could feel free to disagree with each other. So a lot of teachers began with would you rather questions and allowed students to feel comfortable saying, I respectfully disagree with you, to their peers. And they got more comfortable with that, they got more practice, and then we began supporting teachers in implementing some more rigorous academic tasks with that as well. So for example, in math, we had teachers who were giving students word problems. With the summarizing mats, the students were able to solve the word problem their way in their box, and then they talked about the strategies that they used and together came to a consensus on which strategy was most efficient to put in the middle of the summarizing mats. We had students who were using agree-disagree cards to talk about how the main character had changed through the course of a book that they were reading. So those are some examples of ways that we started bringing it more to the academic side. And then as we got more academic, teachers were really wanting more concrete examples for their students with what this looks like in the classroom. And so I took a group of third grade students who was doing really well with student teaming and having conversations with each other. And I gave them various tasks to complete, and I recorded them while they were doing those tasks. And we were able to use those recordings as examples in the classroom. And that was really beneficial for both students and for teachers as well. Teachers were able to play those recordings, they could pause, lead conversations with their class about what those students noticed and how they could start implementing it. And I think it was really beneficial as well for the students to see themselves represented in that, to be able to see that kids at their school were having these academic conversations and that they could apply that as well. And then we also at JSA wanted to start creating a repository of some of that work that we had done. And so on the board, you see some examples of work that we have done. On the left side is a lesson plan template. Part of our work with the Willing Coalition was taking a look at some lesson plans that were available on the Instructional Empowerment website. And then we did ask our teachers in the Willing Coalition, who were opening up their classrooms on the 23rd for you all, to create a lesson plan in that template that was available for you on that visit. We also had a design with our new JSA Jaguar, championed by Ms. Sarah Jones back here, that was showing our standards, the learning targets, and the success criteria. That was the focus of that lesson. And then the task that they had at hand, as well as any instructional empowerment tools that they might need to complete that task. And then on this slide, we've got a couple examples. What we found was that a lot of teachers were really interested in utilizing these tools in their classrooms. Currently, Sarah and I have a set of the toolkit components, and so we created some agree-disagree cards and summarizing mats with our JSA logo so that all teachers would be able to have copies in their classrooms that were available to them to use daily. And then the last is a screenshot of some of the recordings that I had put together that showed those third grade students with the introduction of their task, their think time, the time that they had to share out with each other, and then another recording of when they had their conversation to summarize and then put their consensus in the middle of the mat.
And these are just some examples of slides we used in professional learning with teachers. Just Friday, the bottom right was a task that the teachers were engaging in. Our theme next year is Mission Possible. And so instead of task, we're calling them missions to align with our theme. And the summarizing mat on the left is work that teachers were using. And finally, here's some pictures of the work in action again with our kids. You're seeing pictures from kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and fourth grade. And as the Willing Coalition comes back together and reflects, we're just hearing lots of stories of success in the classrooms, lots of stories of students who we weren't hearing their voices in the classroom starting to use their voice, students sincerely feeling empowered to be the leaders of their learning. And we're really excited for what this will bring to the students of JSA and the staff as more teachers are able to start implementing.
Lastly, it's very important to talk about the impact that this has had already on our staff and students, especially our students. So in our initial 45-day goal of using the action board, this is what we came up with. By May 31st, the JSA staff will reduce behavior support calls to an average of 15 per day as measured by tracking data. In February, when we had some support put into our building, we tracked 84 calls per day. That's a lot, obviously. And through this work, along with our Tier 1 reboot and the work that our building has done and taken on and just really worked on so hard, we actually beat our goal. We got our numbers down to 10.4. Not saying that things are perfect, but that is just a good feeling and just an overall great thing for our students. The other side of that, which some of you, if you were in the afternoon session on that day of the visit, we had a student who had a minor crisis and left the room. Instruction did not pause because the students were engaged in teaming. The teacher was able to walk towards the student, talk with the student, and the learning still continued going. And so we're gonna see that more and more, and I think the sky's the limit. The staff impact, our Willing Coalition is leading the way. It has organically caused peer observations, and when I was in the classroom, that was hard. It was like, I don't want to make myself vulnerable, but we have our teachers opening their classrooms to district leaders, to other people, but their peers, and it's been amazing. And we just have this an excitement that we know that what our students are, that what they are capable of will be unleashed, and that we are going to be able to see amazing growth.
Thank you. I'm really, really proud of this team. And I'm just gonna pause on the fact that they were able to accomplish this with principal training, coaching training. There has been no formal instructional training for teachers to this point at JSA. We had the why workshop. The why workshop is the why. Why student agency? Why teaming? Why the science behind when students do the work, they learn more. I want to pause on this because in our district, we have a real strength, and that is our building principals, our coaching model with our area chiefs, and our teacher leaders and coaches in the buildings. They have the capacity to change our district in a positive way. We need to support them. And I am so excited, and I'm trying to maintain my composure, but they have done so much work at JSA, and there are others that have also done that. But I was literally shocked when I went in there that day, because the work is really good. And they were able to pull this off without formal instruction for our teachers. And I can't imagine when we get to the point where we're able to work with teachers directly on their instruction, what will happen. So I would ask that Michelle say a few words, but more importantly, I have for you a document, you should have that, I think it was in your board packet. But this outlines what our 3 tiers of learning will be. Focus schools supported by IE, and we know that we are going to learn the coaching piece of this. We are going to walk alongside them. We are going to be held accountable as a district team for the work in these buildings. And if you flip it over, our focus schools are CRA, Johnson, Wilson, Roosevelt, and McKinley. Now, in the data piece, why those? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, we have some magnet funding for some of those buildings that is significant. But also, if you remember back to some of that jarring data on the behavior, a lot of that data is coming from middle schools, right? So we know that we need to support the middle schools in a different way. So we have several there. We have 2 schools, Cedar River Academy and Johnson, that are in need of support based on data from our state of Iowa. So that we were very strategic in supporting our schools with IE alongside to ensure success. I have no doubt that we'll be successful. So if you flip back over, it lists out underneath each of those what the supports will be in terms of school leadership support and classroom level supports. It's heavy, and there's a lot of work that will be happening every second to third week. Our guided schools, this is something that I personally feel is important for our district. It's important to have someone come in to help us with it, but it's also important for us to lead it and support it with pieces that we would consider guided, supported partially by E and partially by Cedar Rapids, learning from focus schools. So we will actually be applying the learning that we're learning in our focus schools, in our guided schools. They will come in far less, and our work with our chief of schools will be higher in those areas supported by the Office of Academics. Then we have our foundational schools, which is 22 schools. Those schools will have supports. They will have supports from the Office of Academics and from our chief of schools outlined in that category. So the entire district will have some layer of support. We will be moving everyone together. We know that our focus schools need some more support than the other areas, and we're providing equity of that for those buildings. With that, on the next sheet, I have the budget plan for each of these areas. Before I start with that, Michelle, do you have anything that you would like to add about our 3 tiers and the work at JSA?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, it was September 6th and 7th where I had the privilege of starting my relationship with Cedar Rapids, and it's been a fantastic 10 months. I have had the opportunity to engage with teachers, school leaders, and district leaders. And I can assure you, because I travel the country and I meet a lot of people, I can tell you, you have absolute rock stars in Cedar Rapids. And we are very excited about this partnership. To Corinne's point, the why workshop is very important because it gives you the understanding of why. It's very hard sometimes to think, I can change my classroom, I just changed my instruction. It's not because of anybody's fault. It's a legacy system that we know has been in education for years. And so I kudos to the Cedar Rapids team for wanting to challenge that legacy system and see what they can do for their kids. I've had interactions in a lot of your schools. I was in all of the 9 SDNA schools. I've done a lot of the calibration work. I've done a lot of the working with your leaders on their action boarding. And the other reason I can give you the evidence for why this will work well is because of my visit to JSA. Kudos to the JSA team. Again, I travel the country. I was in 6 classrooms that day where I can sit here and tell you 100% of the students were cognitively engaged in their learning. They were the ones. What we say is whose brain is firing. I can tell you your students' brains were firing that day. And it was absolutely phenomenal to see. I can't wait to see where this can go with the coach. I think it was Corinne who pointed out that the JSA team has not had the formal coaching yet, and that is part of the partnership with us. We are very excited about the partnership because it will encompass every one of your schools. And those focus schools will be there much more intensely, where we become real coaches. We do not take over schools. We are not a co-principal. We are a principal coach. And we coach your instructional coaches to support teachers. So really working through that mindset to create these high rigor, high agency classrooms that your schools are looking to create. Then with the guided schools, not as much support, but definitely through supporting your academic team, your school, we will absolutely see those schools flourish under that guidance. And then the fact that you said, no, we want every school involved with the model of instruction and designing interdependent tasks and the work that your coaches have already done this year, they are ready for it. The other great thing is because you took this year to do what we call a readiness phase, you're ready to start day one. So as soon as the 24-25 school year starts, your schools are ready to begin working towards those high rigor, high agency classrooms. So I'm very excited about this work. Thank you for letting me speak tonight.
The final phase of this was we were able to work with Michelle and her team to create a plan that is special for Cedar Rapids. This is not purchasing a program where they come in and this is what we do. Believe me, she has jumped through hoops to make sure that Cedar Rapids is happy in terms of our plan. So the plan is different than what has been agreed to by other districts. This is different because we have that coaching model and the need to leverage our highest areas, which are our coaches, leaders, and our area chiefs. So that's why our plan is a little bit different than what you might see in other districts. We were able to look at the funding in terms of 4 buckets. The magnet schools, and I listed what the purpose of the magnet schools were. Our magnet team was able to go back to the federal government and create a change within our magnet piece to be able to use these funds, and Adam and Jillian are both in full support of using magnet funds for this purpose. We were able to work with our TLC committee and look at funds for our coaches for next year for the coaching piece of that, and they secured that amount for our coaching team. ESSA funds were able to be secured for those buildings that are in need of those funds. We have 3. And the piece I'm probably most proud of is our teachers in the funding piece. They came forward, our committee met last week, and they wanted to support this work in the tune of $821,000, knowing that some of this money was going to certain schools and not equitably distributed. But it is, because these are the schools that need it the most. And our teaching staff on that TQ committee did not bat an eye to support this amount of money from their TQ funds. So I am just amazed and so excited for that piece of that. So the funds for this year will come from, if approved, from Magnet, TLC, ESSA, and TQ, outlined on the sheet that I have provided. Any questions from the board in terms of our presentation tonight or from JSA? Michelle, why we have her. Any questions?
Thank you, Corrine. Before we take questions, I just want to congratulate the JSA team. As you said, there were several of us there for a visit earlier in May. I know how intimidating it can be for a classroom teacher to have someone come into your classroom, let alone the superintendent and 3 board members, plus all the other people that came in that day. So to that Coalition of the Willing, please tell them thank you. They are very much appreciated. We saw amazing things from the kids, such engagement, active engagement in all the classrooms we visited. So please tell those teachers that we appreciate them and their work and their willingness to come in every Monday early in the morning. So questions?
I just want to build on that. I know that these coaching positions are so crucial to the success, and that building leadership is so crucial to the success. And hoop jumping and oversight on Corinne and Michelle's part, I mean, it was truly you could see the collaboration happening and the excitement around it, and that got me excited. And I would just say, I love the example when we were there of thinking back on kind of what a group learning experience used to look like, and one person would sort of dominate and everybody else would sit back and watch. And this was really just a shining example of why why instruction matters and specific instruction matters and what a difference that can make, because these kids had autonomy over their learning. They were just listening to them kind of talk about, disagreeing or agreeing and being able to then come to a consensus. These were true life skills on top of the fact that they were taking in the content of each of these lessons. These were just general life skills that will set them up for success and being good members of our community. So I was so thrilled to be there. Thank you to the teachers for opening the doors. That was a lot of people walking in. And it was really, really incredible to kind of see them in action. And I just make sure to let them know that we felt really proud. So yes, I just want to say, all voices were heard. There were the roles that these kids were assuming. I just was, really thrilled. I think one comment I have is just considering these teachers who are, what is the name? The Willing Coalition. Those that are kind of stepping up to the plate. They're these, they're leading and they're finding ways to kind of be at the forefront of this. I want to find unique ways that we can continue celebrating their success and their willingness to participate wholeheartedly and serve as kind of shining examples of what this looks like in classrooms. So just want to challenge us all to think about ways we can, further lift them up and build them up and let them know that we're really proud of them. So general comments, not a ton of questions, but thank you for all you're doing.
Just curious, do the buildings already know what tier they fall into? And have you heard, are they fully supportive? Were there any challenges to wanting, more support or support in different ways?
I will answer on behalf of the area chiefs with that. Yes, they know. There were lots of challenges in terms of finalizing where people fell and where buildings needed to be. What we found was more people wanted the support than what we could provide. So that's another reason why we settled on that guided piece, so that we could do some of the coaching ourselves so that we could move things forward.
And maybe a follow-up question, do we have a process for once we get started, if we realize, no, some additional supports really are needed for all buildings and all students to be successful? Do we have a process for that?
There is probably more of an asterisk in that, i.e., Michelle understands that we may make changes throughout the year depending on needs of the buildings. I don't foresee a lot of that except from our internal teams, but we may, and she's aware of that.
Yeah, I know. I think we all agree that we want all of our buildings to be successful. So if we're seeing some challenges, I think this board would benefit from hearing about those and not just trying to find a way to work around it. If additional supports are needed, I think that we would love to hear about that. Certainly continue to hear success stories, but if there are challenges, we'd like to figure out ways to make those better.
Thank you.
Was there an associated timeline for the focus guide and foundational implementation across these buildings? Do we have that information?
We know that focused and guided will be moving from day one. We have, as soon as if this is approved, probably tomorrow, I'll be working with Michelle on the SWAT team that'll come in the first several weeks of school. We know that it won't be building by building, but we will be bringing large amounts of people in to do it all at once, the first phase. So, Michelle, you want to speak to that part?
you ask the question again? It was hard to hear it. I heard timeline.
Just kind of getting a sense of the rollout and projected timelines of when this will, be in full swing in each of these categories, focus, guided, and foundational across buildings.
Yes, absolutely. Again, because you went through the readiness phase this year, you're going to be able to start, your principals are already calibrated so they can start using Rigor Walk day one. So that can start right away. 45-day goals. They're already writing their 45-day goals. So those will be ready day one. The model of instruction professional learning will occur later, a little bit later in the year, towards the end of September, I believe is the date right now. But our coaching will begin immediately. Our district lead, pending board approval tonight, will be meeting with, I will be introducing the district lead to your team. And they will start those conversations of when's the first day of school, when do we get in there? So yes, the days will start in August. We always factor in August time, so we just wait to tell you exactly what those days are because we want the district to have a say in when those days will be. So again, because of the readiness phase and all the work you did this year, you are really ready to begin this work. It's the day students show up at school.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to take one moment. Thank you to the Board of Education for focusing on academic achievement, first of all. They say high-performing school districts, their school board members spend most of their time talking about instruction. So thank you to our Board of Education. I cannot let JSA leave this room without saying something on their behalf. Earlier you heard a report as it relates to discipline. And I just want to emphasize the approach and the strategies that we are taking to support our students here in Cedar Rapids Community School District. Justice is in the classroom. It starts with instruction. When students are highly engaged and when they are involved, instruction has the power to transform lives. And that's basically what you're seeing. We have a transformed principal. I know she don't mind me saying this. And as she said, it's been a very challenging year, but through coaching, throughout this process, through her leading the work, I've never seen you more energized, and I am just so proud of how you're leading the work. To go over to look at the discipline numbers that we talked about and how that has changed. When we went into those classrooms, we're talking about kindergarten, first grade classroom. This is in March when they started this work, and we were able to see immediate impacts. And so I just want to thank you all for what you're doing, for leading the way, not giving up on kids, not giving up on yourselves. This is what the real work looks like, and I just want to thank you for engaging your parents along this process. And I do want to say thank you to the Office of Academics. Corrine has been pushing on this all year long. You see many of the members out here and other projects that they have that they are also doing. But it's all aligned towards us making sure that our students, that they are prepared, that they are achieving, that they are having wonderful experiences every day across our entire district. And I do have to say thank you to Dr. Tove, to Michael, and his team, because they really did have to customize this work for us because of the investment that the district has made for years in instructional coaches. They don't go many places and they find this level of investment in instructional coaching. So therefore, we do have some capacity, and it does set us on a stage where we can have sustainability within our school district. So thank you. And one last thing on JSA, we didn't ask JSA to host us. I had no idea that we were going to get an email where they were inviting us to come to their school, open up their doors, because they were proud of the work. They know that they still have work to do, but again, the whole staff, they are willing to do what's necessary. So thank you to the Board of Education and to all of our support teams in the difference that you're making in the lives of our kids.
Director Borcherding, no. Other questions? Thank you very much. Thank you. Next up, we have the approval agreement between the Cedar Rapids Community School District and Instructional Empowerment 2024-2025 school year. Do we have a motion to approve said item?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
This is a roll call.
Director Kaminsky,
Aye.
Director Humbles,
Aye.
Director Byers,
Aye.
Director Newman,
Aye.
Director Roundtree,
Aye.
Director Borstein,
Aye.
President Garlock.
Aye. Now we have the approval for the Cedar Rapids Community School District's Developed Service Delivery Plan. Do we have a motion to approve said item?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
This is a roll call.
Director Humbles,
Aye.
Director Byers,
Aye.
Director Newman,
Aye.
Director Roundtree,
Aye.
Director Borstein,
Aye.
Director Tominski,
Aye.
President Garlock.
Aye. Do we have a motion to approve the Iowa School Finance Information Services membership renewal for the 2024-25 school year?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Do we have a motion to approve the appointment of Carla Hogan as Cedar Rapids Community School District Board Treasurer for the Board of Directors?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
This is a roll call.
Director Byers,
Aye.
Director Newman,
Aye.
Director Roundtree,
Aye.
Director Borstein,
Aye.
Director Tominski,
Aye.
Director Humbles,
Aye.
President Garlock.
Aye. Carla, do you want to come up? Do you, Carla Hogan, solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the Office of Treasurer of the Cedar Rapids Community School District in the County of Lynn, State of Iowa, as now or hereafter required by law? If so, please respond by saying, "I do."
I do.
Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve the appointment of Ryan Reedstrom as Cedar Rapids Community School District Board Secretary for the Board of Directors?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
This is a roll call vote.
Director Newman,
Aye.
Director Roundtree,
Aye.
Director Borstein,
Aye.
Director Tominski,
Aye.
Director Humbles,
Aye.
Director Byers,
Aye.
President Garlock.
Aye. Do you, Ryan Reedstrom, solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the Office of Secretary of the Cedar Rapids Community School District in the County of Lynn, State of Iowa, as now and hereafter required by law? If so, please respond by saying, "I do."
I do.
Thank you, and congratulations to both of you. Is there a motion to approve the dissolution of the following board-appointed committees: Facility Master Plan Oversight Committee and Technology Oversight Committee?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Is there a motion for the Board of Education to meet in closed session on Monday, June 10th, 2024, to evaluate professional competency as provided by Iowa Code Section 21.51I?
I move that the Board of Education hold a closed session on Monday, June 10th, 2024, to evaluate the professional competency of an individual whose appointment, hiring, performance, or discharge is being considered when necessary to prevent needless and irreparable injury to those individuals' reputation, and that the individual request a closed session as provided by Section 21.51I of the Iowa Code.
Do we have a second?
Second.
This is a roll call vote.
Director Roundtree,
Aye.
Director Borstein,
Aye.
Director Tominski,
Aye.
Director Humbles,
Aye.
Director Byers,
Aye.
Director Newman,
Aye.
President Garlock.
Aye. We will begin our closed session in the conference room. Thank you.